This is a bogged, a newly added special mob that appears in certain biomes. This is a common swamp, a mangrove swamp, and in the test rooms underground. He shoots only poisoned arrows, is infected with mushrooms, and wears clothes with a belt on his body, which makes it closer to stray than to a regular skeleton. And despite this, he is a separate mob, over which sooner or later the question will hang. Why did this skeleton become different from the others? What happened to him that made the swamper change? His health dropped below that of a normal skeleton, and his arrows became poisoned. So now we will dive into his story, find out about his origins, what happened to him, and how he became exactly like that. Sit back, Macus is with you, and we'll start the Minecraft theory. Since the mobile is new, let's study its characteristics. The first is health. Instead of 20 units, he has 16 of them when compared with an ordinary skeleton. In other words, 10 hearts were exchanged for 8 hearts. He also takes longer to draw his bow to shoot, a little longer than a normal skeleton. This is offset by his one hit on the player. If he gets caught, poisoning takes a lot more life than another arrow, so situationally, it is a more formidable opponent. Although I think that his health was lowered in vain. In appearance, he is wearing some kind of clothes on his shoulders, and it is made of algae that hang from his shoulders. And a belt is strapped across the chest, which is very similar to the fastening of a quiver with arrows. Half of all the bones have grown. There is a lot of moss and other foliage in the swamps, and at the ends of the arms and legs, we see that they are all covered in mud, which also corresponds to the spawn biome, because there is a lot of mud in the swamp. One thing haunts me, his appearance in the Palace of Trials. The structure was built specifically underground, and the spawners are neatly arranged as planned by the builders of this palace. Considering that most of the skeletons are primitive creatures that shoot arrows at the player just to kill. It's strange that they suddenly have clothes, poisoned arrows, and strange colored eyes. After digging into the facts, we can discover that this is not an ordinary mob, and it has its own history of appearance. Let's start with the appearance bogged. His skull has sprouted mushrooms. Fly agaric and brown mushrooms on top, more one brown mushroom at the back. The very first version of the texture looked like this. It's much better now because of the 3D textures. By the way, this is an interesting fact, but the second mob with a double-layered head is a drowned man, and as far as I remember, there are more such mobs in There is no Minecraft. So the 2-layered head allows us to see the inside of his skull. There is a white mushroom stem there. In other cases, there is a brown mushroom there, and this makes it clear to us that it has sprouted mushrooms all over. If we fly inside it, we will see that the big part of its internal texture consists of moss and mushrooms. So far, this tells us that he has been lying idle for some time and for so long that he managed to get infected with mushrooms. Clothes are his distinguishing feature. Ordinary skeletons don't wear any clothes, while a swamper uses a cape made of algae. Some of my viewers have already noticed the similarity with the elements of clothing of the swamp inhabitants who use algae and water lilies as a hat, for example, or as a cape. And if the algae on it can be pushed to... It was an accident that he stayed like that for a long time. In the water, and then when he decided to stand up, algae remained hanging on his shoulders. But a belt that might have been for a quiver of arrows can't be pushed off by accident. You can try very hard, but you won't succeed. It's as if he was specially dressed. His bones are green, and I dare say rotted due to the wetness of the swamp. Because of this, it is more fragile and therefore has much less life than the basic skeleton. The cool thing about this skeleton is the ability to cut it, and even though we don't completely clean it, we get rid of mushrooms, but we only cut off what has grown from above. I think it's a cool trick, like with a mushroom cow. When cutting, either 2 fly agaric mushrooms or 2 brown mushrooms or 1 mushroom each fall out. It's random, but not more than 2 mushrooms from 1. It would be cool for such skeletons to grow mushrooms again after a while because the roots of the mushrooms remained inside the skull. Nothing prevents them from sprouting again. The appearance of the skeleton. A particularly strong hook with a belt running across the chest hints to us that someone created it. And the main difference is, this skeleton differs from the others in that it shoots special arrows for poisoning. Actually, they can be knocked out of it with a huge chance such arrows can only be crafted. and you need a poisoning potion. If I ask you a question, who makes potions besides the Minecraft player? The answer will not be long in coming. And your answer is correct. This mob's name is Witch. And how convenient it turns out that she also lives in the swamp biome, just like the swamp skeleton. The witch is experimenting with mushrooms in her hut. The fly agaric on the windowsill in a pot is clearly proof of this. I think she spent experiments on skeletons. It depends on how effective they become. If you arm them with poisoning arrows or, for example, plant mushrooms in their skulls, why would she do that? It's a good question. I will assume that a witch can do this on behalf of looters. Robbers often use the services of a witch as a hired healer when they raid a village. In such raids, the witch throws healing and regeneration potions at the champions and poisoning potions at the player and golems. Moreover, the swamp is taken from Minecraft Dungeoness. There is exactly the same skeleton, but with a slightly different texture found in the swamp biome. He also shoots poisoning arrows. And just the same, in Dungeoness, it is well shown how the witch, along with the robbers, conduct experiments in the swamps. So it's possible that the swamp skeleton used to be an ordinary skeleton that the witch took as a test subject. And now boggies are appearing in every biome of the swamp, because witches live in every swamp. And this belt, it's clear that someone reasonable put it on the skeleton. Now knowing that experiments were conducted on the skeletons, personally, I'm starting to think it's a piece of leash around my neck. Do you know how they hang a prisoner around his neck loops? Previously, it was as if they were tied up with a leash and held to conduct experiments. But these are just my thoughts out loud, which may find confirmation in the future. In addition to the swamp and mangrove swamps, the skeleton appears in the Palace of Trials. The test palace contains many spawners, which periodically and in time as a single mechanism spawn the right mobs. This is a complex underground structure which, according to my theory, was built by bandits. So the bandits used the testing palace to train their troops. The corridors, the spawner rooms, and the mobs were all there designed and built by robbers. That's why this structure is called the Palace of Trials, Trials for Robbers. In addition to regular mobs, slugs also appear in spawners. It is also a swamp mob. Except for the caves of the ordinary world, slugs appear only in swamps. This only happens during certain phases of the moon, such as during a full moon. These swamp mobs, along with the poisoned skeletons, were placed in spawners to be used as mobs for training. At this point, your motivation to experiment on skeletons is revealed. They try to make them stronger, so that it harms the players in the ordinary world. They also made them stronger in order to better train their fighters in the form of champions and bandits with crossbows. And here is such a strange goal of creating marsh skeletons. I don't see any other reasons for creating Bogged, but that doesn't mean there aren't any. Therefore, share your theory in the comments. It will be interesting for me to read. And this video has come to an end. Subscribe to the channel, because there are a lot of interesting things about Minecraft. And I'm saying goodbye. Macus was with you. Good luck to all, and bye-bye to everyone.